35mm or 23mm if you're using an APS camera like the Fuji X mount. That's the Swiss Army knife focal length of focal lengths. It's easily the only focal length you need to take with you if you're going for one lens travel or something along those lines. With the release of the Fujifilm XF, they also released this new pancake lens, the 23mm f2.8, which is interesting in a way because Fujifilm dumped this in a very saturated 23mm sea of lenses. I'm exploring this new lens, the 23mm 2.8. You know, before this was on the table, I was hoping that they would make an f2 pancake E size lens, even if it meant that they would give it some slow autofocus or something. But turns out that maybe that's a little bit too much to ask. So with the release of this lens, begs the question, does this lens render the old 23 f2.0 redundant? Or did Fujifilm drop this lens in a sea that is already so saturated that there's no market for it other than being a kit lens for the E5? I'm gonna try and explore this question in a 2-day photo walk, you could sort of say. So I think immediately when you pick up these two lenses, there are some obvious differences. One being that the old one, the f2.0, really feels like a modern lens. It's very fast focusing, and it's really nice all metal construction. When you haven't used this Fuji what do you call it, Fujicron or something, this range of lenses, because I shoot with the f1.4 range of lenses and some smaller pancakey things, and I haven't actually used this whole 2.0 range of lenses. So what surprised me is that they are actually a little bit lighter than you would think. When you look at these lenses, you think that they are a little bit larger. Like they're not huge, but I'm thinking that would have been nice if Fujifilm could shave off it a little bit, but when you get it in your hands, it's not really that bad. Where the new pancake 23mm, it's actually really small. When you put it on something larger, with the grip, it becomes almost this body cap size style. But when you put it on an XE5, it still feels like a lens more than a body cap. And I think this lens is sort of tailored for that size body. This will go well on an X Pro as well, an X Pro 123. From a build quality point of view, I think these two lenses are both really great. I wasn't so surprised by the f2.0 version, as it already has a pretty good reputation. It's an all metal construction. It felt like a nice quality lens with no compromise to speak of. With the new lens, I was really pleasantly I was really positively surprised that it feels like it has a really sturdy build quality. Something you can really say about the 27mm. This is the old 27mm. It feels a little bit plasticky, although the front part and focus ring and the aperture ring, they're metal. They feel a little bit more like, how do you say? I don't know how you say it in English, but in Danish you would say like laminate. It's a skin on the construction. It doesn't feel like it's super tough. Where the new one, the 23 f2.8, it actually feels like a substantial lens. And it feels like you could just put it in your pocket with a cap on. Another nice thing I noticed is this aperture ring of this lens. One of the nicest aperture ring I've felt on a Fujifilm camera. And I know this doesn't say a lot, but if you've used a lot of Fujifilm lenses, you'll know that they are all over the place. You'll have some really firm ones that feels a little bit too firm sometimes, and then you'll have these way too loose ones. For example, the first generation 35mm f1.4, it has a very loose aperture ring, and it gets even looser when you had it for a couple of years. And the 35mm lens was released together with the 18mm lens, which has a really like firm aperture ring, which is just mind confusing when you're using a lot of Fujifilm lenses. And if Fujifilm decides that this is the way aperture rings are gonna feel from now on, well, that would be really nice. Another thing I noticed with the aperture ring is when you have the camera on aperture control or manual with auto ISO or something. With all other lenses, or at least most other lenses, when you change the aperture ring, you'll get like a split of a second where the exposure will sort of find its place. It will get bright if you open, and then it will normalize. And if you fire a shot in that second, it will be overexposed. But with this new lens, the camera doesn't act that way. It's a little bit peculiar in a way. And if that's a new thing, that's really great. So the only like small relatively downside to that is that you cannot really, with your eyeballs, you cannot count the clicks, if that makes sense. I think that's something I do unconsciously, you know, count clicks in one way or another, either by sound or by visual feedback. So when you have your camera up to your eye and you change the aperture ring, sometimes it got me a little bit confused, as if I were in command mode or something. I know this is something you'll get used to in a matter of one day or something, but it's just something I noticed, and it has some, well, the fact that you don't risk overexposing or underexposing when you change the aperture is super nice. So when you first mount the 23 f2.8 on a camera, you'll notice that it's really loud. It sounds a bit like some of the first generation Fujifilm lenses and maybe the 27 pancake lens. That wasn't really a shocker for me. I was expecting that. But I also found that in reality, when you take it to the street or somewhere with just some noise, then it will just disappear. It won't be an issue. But maybe that's just me. I don't think the 18mm, which is definitely the loudest of all of Fujifilm lenses, I don't think of that as being overly loud. But I think this loudness also contributes to like an understanding that it's a slow lens, and that's definitely wrong. This lens is, I think it's as fast as any of the other 23mm, but this lens is definitely not slow. It's quite the opposite. It's quite fast, in fact. And it surprised me that it's actually faster than the X100, quite a lot actually. I don't think the X100 is slow at all, but it did surprise me that when you put them up next to each other, the X100 is actually the slower one, and not by a little bit, by quite a bit. So the fact that the X100 is not slow, but this is the slowest, and this one is a lot slower, is a lot faster, it's really a good sign. I mean, yeah. So I think my conclusion is this, that there's definitely still room for the old one, and there's room for the new one to slot in. So while they're technically pretty close to each other, they do some things differently. If you own a body with a grip, then I think that the old one is still probably the better choice, because the new one, while it is smaller, it won't feel that much smaller, because it's just gonna like extrude into the body more or less, at least from the grip of an X-H2. So the fact that it's smaller is not really a plus, in my opinion. If you're really into sharpness, then the new one, the f2.8, is probably the better one. I wasn't able to tell the difference, to be honest, but that's my photography. I don't know. If I took these two lenses into a professional environment, like the theater stage, I think I would find the difference, and I would pick the better one. But then in this case, the better one is also the slower one, and that's also a thing for me. So, you know, I'm sticking with the 1.4 for that, but I'm more looking at this from the perspective of doing street photography or just walk around photography. And with that in mind, I think there's still room for both of them. I think if you plan to do video, the newer one is not really an option unless you're not recording sound at all, because you'll hear the autofocus of the lens all of the time, no matter what you do. It's not loud to your ear in a real world, but the microphone will pick it up and it will be an annoyance. So yeah, if video is a thing for you, then the arrow is still pointing at the old one, because that's like dead silent and it's super fast. So yeah, that's just one reason why there's still room for the older one. And then I did find that when I put the f2.0 on an XE body, it's not big, but it's definitely big enough that if you have the option to take the pancake, I would definitely gravitate toward that, just to save size. And then there's the elephant in the room, and that's the XE1, and that's the X100 6 and 5. You know, if you're getting an XE5 with a 23mm f2.8, I don't know. Yeah, so I think if you're considering an XE5 and only use the 23mm lens, then you might as well look at an X100, because that lens is just smaller and it's brighter and it's just as good. I did find that weirdly enough, that's the slowest lens, autofocus wise. I never pick up the I never pick up the X100 and think that it's acting slow. I always feel like it's really fast. But when I pick these two up next to each other, then it's really apparent that the XE5 with the pancake lens is so much faster. So yeah, that's my conclusion. There's room for both of them, but you gotta really like analyze your needs before you buy any of them.